so we're working with this vendor, and they basically capture all of that tribal knowledge, but specifically the vendor primarily targets OEMs, so equipment manufacturers.
Okay.
That's not a terrible way to do it, because nobody knows more about that piece of equipment than the machine builder who built it, right? So effectively the idea is that every one of these machines that OEM builds comes with the generative AI model. The chatbot is included with
I
it,
see.
ships with it to solve problems. I'm okay with that. That's not terrible. Like, that to me seems like it's fairly de-risked. But this general idea that we're going to slap generative AI down on the plant floor across all kinds of different equipment. Some of this equipment, like the manufacturer doesn't even exist anymore. They've gone out of business or whatever. And somehow the generative AI is going to know how to fix it all and do it in a way that's completely safe, 100% safe, zero failures. Because that's the problem on the plant floor, right? Is that if you give the wrong information to the wrong person at the wrong time on the plant floor, you could kill somebody. Like, the stakes are so much higher. And that's the part that I don't feel like a lot of these AI vendors came from the IT world, the IT space, and they don't understand that the stakes on the plant floor are so much higher. This isn't about generative AI generating a funny marketing blurb and everyone kind of laughs about it and then they go in and fix it, or a funny email to your boss and you're like, well, I've never sent that, and then you go in and fix it. This is about telling somebody on the plant floor how to do something in the heat of the moment. And again, like, we're talking about the loss of life, limb, and property, and that's a real big deal. So that's the stakes that we play at on the plant floor. And so that's all I'm trying to say is I'm not saying we got to slam on the brakes, but let's tap on the brakes and make sure that we're approaching the right problems on the plant floor where generative AI can actually make an impact. That's the other thing is if you're going to spend all this money, let's make sure it's actually going to be able to solve the problem that you want it to solve down there. But then let's make sure that it's doing it in a way that's safe and grounded.
Right. Yep. So is it fair to say then that the biggest application for manufacturing, for AI in manufacturing, is in these judgment-based scenarios?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what we do, we actually have kind of a cheat sheet of, like, here's where you want to look for what in trying to determine what are good use cases. What are the parameters to look for, and one of those is exactly that. Right. So where it's as much that part of the process, it's as much of an art as it is a science, where the operators kind of has to go like this to be able to make good determinations. Great place for autonomous AI. Great place. Where we also say, kind of along the same vein, where like the difference between an expert operator and a novice operator has a material impact on the final quality, on the final throughput, on, effectively, if you're saying, look, oh, Bill's in today, we're going to have a good day on the line, versus, oh, Nathan's in today, it could get a little hairy, right? So, like, those are great situations. We want to then empower that novice operator to be as good as Bill, right? So let's put a system in that looks over their shoulder, and what we call it is a decision support system. Let's put a system in that looks, it's like then Bill's there 24/7 looking over the shoulder of that novice operator and saying, hey, do this, do that, hey, make this one change. And because here's the other thing, it's not just about, like we were talking about, like, just hitting the basic bare minimum of making on-spec product, right? Like, yes, they need to do that, but that's kind of table stakes. If you're not making good product, then you don't have a company, right? So you got to be able to do that. But the difference between novice operators and expert operators is the expert operators then also have kind of secondary and tertiary goals, right? An expert operator is going to say, look, yeah, it's on spec, but it's on the heavy side of spec. So let's make some very minor adjustments to get it down to the lighter side of spec, still on spec, so that we're not just giving away product, right? So that decreases the per unit cost. Let's look at, or they may say, look, yeah, we could do this and we could keep running this way and we'll make on-spec product, but boy, we're wasting energy. If you make these 3 changes, now we can make the same on-spec product, but we've reduced our energy consumption by 8% or 10% or something like that, right? That's the type of things that expert operators have learned over decades.
Yeah.
Novice operators aren't doing any of that. They're happy that they're just finally, they got it dialed in and they're making on-spec product. So that's where this decision support can have those extra parameters and conditions that it's trying to, constraints that it's trying to work towards.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And the thing I think the most about the decision support model is it serves a class of manufacturers that have been traditionally unserved by the automation space.
Mhm.
And so I think that this is a great way for them to start moving towards automation without having a robot that's physically doing something.
Right. Right. Because, I mean, like, look, everyone wants the robot, and we probably need to get more robots and more of that. But I mean, that's huge investments. Like,
Right.
that's significant investments. This is something where, the goal is to be able to take someone in off the street, and with a little bit of training and this system, decision support system, looking over their shoulder, can now make product like an expert operator, or at least approaching an expert operator.
Right.
Let me give you another example in a completely kind of different part of the process. So we've been talking about using autonomous AI more on process control. Same technology, but we can use it to build production schedules, right? Exact same technology. We sit down with those. So we did a project for a paint manufacturer we've all heard of, and they had 2 human schedulers, and in a plant that runs 24/7. And so if an asset went down or they had some issue, their options were continue to run the plant suboptimally until one of their human schedulers came in the morning, or wake them up in the middle of the night. Like,
Right.
these guys, they get sick, they go on vacation, right? There's 2 people.
Yeah.
And so, their goal really then was just to try to build a production scheduling system that would work as well. And again, that a novice person could at least build decent production schedulings, reasonable production schedules based on this system. And so that's what we were able to do. Again, we sat down, we built a simulation of their process. We sat down with those 2 human experts. We said, give us the tips, tricks, the things that you would typically sit down when you were teaching a new scheduler how to do things, teach us.
Yep.
We put that into the AI, and then it runs against that simulation. By the time, and we didn't go easy on it, right? We sent things like, okay, this asset went down. Now build me an optimal schedule. Lowe's just came in with a big hot order for paint. Now build me an optimal schedule, right? So how do you handle all these crazy scenarios and things?
Yeah.
And by the time it was done, it was able to build schedules as well as their human schedulers were.
Wow.
So completely different problem, same technology to solve it.
How did the experienced schedulers respond to this process?
It's also one of the most common questions I get. Like, how do these experts, how do they receive this, and do they see it as a threat, right? That's one of the most common questions I get. Do they see it as a threat? How do they respond to it? Honestly, it's the exact opposite of what you would think. They were excited. They were thrilled to work on this, right? I did a project with a vinyl extrusion manufacturer up in Canada. And both of these guys, so I sat down with the plant manager, and he said, I've got 2 guys who are the best at running this vinyl extrusion line, and they're both less than 5 years from retirement, right? So sitting down with those 2 experts, like, they got one foot out the door. For them, they saw this as their legacy, right? Like, they were so excited to get into all the details and the minutia of, but when it's running hot and you're running this particular product, you've got to make sure you turn down the RPMs on. That's the kind of stuff they get all jazzed about. Why? Because they spent their entire career learning how to be the expert at this. I was at a trade show once and I got asked that question. I said, look, when we sit down with these guys, who are they going to talk to about this stuff, right? Their buddies at the bar after they get off work, they don't want to hear anything about vinyl extrusion.
Yeah.
I said their wives definitely don't want to hear anything more about vinyl extrusion, right? And here we come, we sit down with humility and we say, hey, teach us everything you know. How'd you get so good at this? Right? And they're so excited to teach us. And then they see it as their legacy, because otherwise all that knowledge leaves with them, right? And most of these folks, they grew up at that organization, or at least have spent a long time there. And so they don't want to see it, go down the tank. They want to make sure that gets captured. And then we do things like we'll name the system after them or something like that.
Well, that is a cool thing, and I've heard, other people that have some different ideas and ways of, kind of transferring knowledge from these experienced workers. And, one of them includes video snippets, a searchable AI database that if somebody's having trouble with a process, they could. But then this guy's in all the videos, so then these people start to feel like they know him, even though he's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of got a legacy like that. So
They've always. I've never had a situation where one of those experts wasn't excited to work with us.